My name is Katie Kelly. I'm a Senior Director at ICMA, and among many other things, I am the lead of the ICMA Women's Network, which is something that we set up about 11 years ago and has now turned into a global network spanning 14 different regions with about 5,000 members across all those regions. And we do events all over in those different regions, from Helsinki to Hong Kong, as I always say. To the extent any of you are not aware of the ICMA Women's Network, please just come and speak to us afterwards or look on our website and make sure you're part of it, because we've got so much activity all over the place. And starting with today, so we've got, I'm just going to do a quick introduction. To my right, I've got Robert Bike, who's a partner at Slaughter and May. We've got, to his right, we've got Jen Cresswell, who is on the steering committee of the ICMA Women's Network for the UK region, and is also Global Head of Finance, International Capital Markets, Knowledge and Training at A&O Shearman. Then we have to her right Martin Egan, who is the former chair of ICMA, also the former Managing Director, Global Co-Head, Primary and Secondary Credit, and former Vice Chairman of the Global Markets Client Board. Phew. BNP Paribas. And to his right, we have Lu Fu, who's Managing Director and Head of Digital Global Markets, EMEA at Mizuho International. Thank you all very much for being here. Now, we've got 45 minutes or so, or just slightly less, to get through quite a lot. So just going to crack on here. And just thinking about, you know, I was sort of thinking in my own context. I've got kids who are going off to university. They're like thinking, oh, what am I going to study? If I do history, does it mean I have to be a historian? If I do philosophy, do I have to be a philosopher? I'm like, there are not many jobs on LinkedIn for philosophers, to be fair. But I thought it would be quite interesting just to start looking at your own career trajectories, just to sort of let people, you know, be aware that whatever you are doing now is not necessarily what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. Martin, can you give us an idea of your career path, how you got to where you are and all this?
Yeah. Good morning to everyone. So my career path is probably from a different generation, practically speaking. I left school at 18 and got a job at JP Morgan Limited. How I got the job is a long story, but it was a time where you didn't necessarily need like degrees or even actually A-levels to get a job. But I managed to get one at JP Morgan. My parents were Irish Catholics, came to the UK in the 40s and 50s, and it was all about sort of working hard. So as soon as the opportunity came, I had 5 interviews and started at JP Morgan. And I think back now, and then I look at today, my own children, the advantage of it actually was the fact that by the time I was 21, I had really good knowledge actually of the bond markets, because JP Morgan really trained you. You did your day job and they trained you, and it gave you a real sort of actual time perspective of how everything worked. And actually, probably most importantly, you started at a very low rung. So away from getting coffees and sandwiches for the senior members of staff, I spent time in the back office. I really learned how the infrastructure worked, so it was very valuable. So I think now it's obviously much more challenging, even though I do hear a lot of companies. My niece's boyfriend, he's at JP Morgan, and he spends 4 days a week in Bournemouth, and then he goes to uni to get some financial training, and hopefully he'll get a job. So I think mine is slightly unusual, and I'm a great supporter of all companies of bringing people into work at 18. There are many benefits. Obviously, the other side of the equation is university and the benefits you get from that. But for me, actually, it was the best thing ever, starting at 18 and really learning the sort of nuts and bolts and the basics.
Yeah. Now, Lou, I know you actually had a bit of a pivot when you started work, because you started around the time of the GFC and things didn't quite work out the way you had expected. So could you talk us through that?
Yeah, so my career started with Citi, and in 2008, which is the credit crunch year. I was so grateful I actually got a job. And when I showed up the first day, they said, sorry, the team we assigned to you is gone. I said, okay, what does this mean? I must still have a job or what? They said, yes, we do have a team who can host you. They are data center team. I said, what does that even mean? What does data center mean? What I'm going to do there? So, but by the time I was thinking, you know what, as long as I can have a job, I'm very happy. And so I started actually become a business analyst for a data center team. The reason why is because back then they were doing a massive data center migration in the Europe, which I got no clue like what that means. But the good thing of that is I've been working with a group of team who are extremely professional, and they literally teaching me how a proper business analyst job should be, despite the content of the project. And also because the nature of the project that has very good visibility to the seniors, because we need to do a lot of like presentation on the progress. And so it's actually helped me to move to the second role, which is when someone senior moved on, they actually came to me saying, would you like to join me? Because I think you might be wasted a little bit here in the team. And that's how I started to move to a different team. And then very quickly I realized, oh, I would love to be more kind of business focused. And given my background, I did engineering back at university, and I really hope I could find a job on the trading floor which have a focus on technology and the data where I think my skill set could help. And very luckily that Citi at the time was very, very supportive on internal mobility. I end up joining the electronic trading team for credit. And that's how I then kicked off my career afterwards, is all e-trading, e-commerce across different asset classes.
So there's a lesson there about having a bit of agility and also just taking advantage of opportunities within the career. Now, Jen, I know you actually took an opportunity to change from what you were doing within A&O, now A&O Shearman. Can you talk us through that?
Well, I mean, I was actually thinking that, I mean, I started the early part of my career as a transactional lawyer for a few years, and I realised that, I mean, at the time, things were quite different. Back then, it was in the 2000s, so I was working really long hours. It's against the backdrop of the fact that, you know, there are things that perhaps wasn't the support back then that there is now. But I'd realised that the things that I enjoyed doing in my job were, I actually really liked lifting the lid on law and regulation. So when I moved to A&O, as we were back then, I moved across as a knowledge lawyer. And I have, so I focused on trying to find something that I wanted to do and really enjoyed doing. And I've had a really fulfilling and interesting career as a result. And I think it was a quite unusual move at the time. I know that there are more knowledge lawyers now, and there's several knowledge lawyers in the room. But back then, it was quite unusual. But I was keen to focus on something I really enjoyed.
But I suspect you still do put in the very long hours, though, Jen. So, you know, I don't know if anything changed for you in that sense at all. But just then thinking around, so everyone's got, you know, their day jobs, and everyone's very busy, and everyone's working long hours, etc. But do any of you have any interesting extracurricular activities that you feel have been additive to your career or help open up opportunities for you that you might not otherwise have had? And Robert, I'm going to turn to you.
Yeah, so I wasn't asked the first question because I'm a lawyer and I did law. And that's really quite dull. But actually, to be fair, my mum decided for me. I was in Outer Mongolia when university selection came in, and I'd applied for German and Russian at university, and I'd also applied for law, which is a really bad idea to apply for both. So my mum decided I should do law, and I'm deeply grateful to her. So many ways. You're implying the extracurricular thing that I do. Yeah, so apparently it surprises people, but in my spare time, I'm an Uber driver in London, so watch out. Why do I do it? I think that let's park the Uber driver thing and put a pin in that for a second, but I do think within a career, and I've been doing this since 1998, I have great skincare, but I do think that you need that balance. You just need some normality. The whole financial lawyery thing is all fascinating and it's all great, and the gym memberships and the incessant trying to, you know, beat other people up, hopefully not, but just to get ahead is kind of really dull. And you need some balance to that, and I find that balance in all the things that I do outside, but also all the things that I do within the firm. So I'm very involved in our recruitment, I'm very involved in our diversity, I work on our pro bono initiatives, and that provides me with great balance in my day job in terms of client work. So also on the side, and none of you will need this, but I also with my wife do marriage counselling for people, which really puts life in perspective each time I sit down with people. and I do some bereavement counselling as well. So there you go. Is that enough weirdness?
Well, I think it's wonderful, and I'm keen to find out from the others what you do or what you have done in your careers that have really helped your career in a way that just doing your job wouldn't have. Jen, do you have anything?
Well, for me, Katie, it's involvement in the ICMA Women's Network, which, I mean, obviously you can see Charlotte here as well. So I think the network started about 11 years ago, and I remember I had the opportunity to get involved in a focus group kind of discussion very early on about it. So I said, yeah, I'll come along to that, and I've been involved ever since. And I think I've really enjoyed it, and it has definitely helped, being involved in something like that helps develop various skills along the way. And I've certainly met a lot of interesting people that I wouldn't have met in my day job. I think it has helped, and generally being involved in something like that helps to broaden skills because you're talking about things outside of the day job, you're meeting those different people, and also to a degree you feel like you're perhaps helping others in a different way, providing some support where you can. And it has been fun along the way, Katie, hasn't it? I mean, we've had lots of fun events, coffees, the latest edition, the Net Walk. So I've really enjoyed it too. Yeah. And I would say, Katie, thank you for all the support, of course, that you provide to the Women's Network. I just want to say she does a lot.
Martin, what about you?
Yeah, so I haven't worked really since 2019, so I feel a bit guilty. But anyway, I played a lot of sport when I was young, especially rugby, so that really helped in terms of sort of team mentality. And I played until I was about 35, so that was a real good way of, it's extracurricular. I'm a passionate West Ham fan, which has not been so good after this last weekend, but anyway, that's another story. But at BNP, I chaired the Diversity and Inclusion Council for the bank in the UK, which is about 6,000 people. I was chair of the Pride Network. I was chair of the Early Careers Network. And it was a little bit linked to my point earlier, having started with an unusual trajectory in the industry, not at the time, but coming straight from school, I was a great believer that the financial markets were very biased, to be honest, and there was an opportunity for people, could be female, could be gay, whatever, could be just a little bit different. So I spent a lot of time, as well as a day job, and I got immense enjoyment from it. And probably one of the best times is when a young DCM guy came to me and he said, I've got to tell you, I'm gay. But I can't come out. I said, yes, you can. So I talked it through with him, what was the best way forward, and he came out to his manager, and he got huge support, and everybody realised anyway he was gay, and his career went from sort of static to great acceleration because he told everybody who he truly was. And that, for me, gave me such personal satisfaction. It was much better than sort of making X million on a bond deal or a great credit trade, whatever. But it really gave me some personal fulfillment, which I think you all need in your careers. You need to have that personal fulfillment. So that was it for me.
Yeah, that's really true about the personal fulfillment. And Jen, I'm picking that up from you as well about, achieving something that's just different to your day job that gives you a sense of, I've done that. Lou, do you have any similar experiences?
Yeah, I really echo what I think Martin just said about true to be yourself. I think when I first, because I grew up in China in a culture where people believe in you just keep your head down, get your job done, and you will get noticed. And then when I started to work in financial industry in London, it doesn't work like that at all, right? You need to know how to get your voice being heard. And at the very beginning, I think I struggled quite a lot. And to me, it's really not trying to embrace who I really am. It's trying to find a way to fit into the wider team, the culture. And back then, I worked with quite a lot middle-aged white men, and they talk about football all the time, which I got no passion at all. I'm really sorry, but Yeah, I am. I was a supporter forced by a team member, and I remember in order to being not seen as being so quiet and couldn't have a social conversation with the team, I literally prepare every Sunday on what's happening of the football. It's become a job, and so on Monday when people ask me how you're doing and then kick off the conversation around football, I can naturally like, oh, I can join this conversation. But to be honest, that's not who I really am, and then. The turning point is my passion, true passion for wine, for drinking. And it works really well, really well in this country. And then that's where people start to realize, oh, and then I become more lively when I talking about my passion about wine, and this become a natural connector of me to starting talking more naturally with people. I remember that someone told me that now I can truly see you. I feel like that's who you really are, and that's making me think like it doesn't matter. I'm not saying you have to drink, but it's like you find being authentic, embrace who you really are, and it doesn't matter. It could be cooking, could be travel. You could find a very natural way to connect with your working environment, with your colleagues, and that's the passion now. Also, I'm very supportive of not only gender diversity but also ethnicity diversity, because I can see people coming from different background. You need to find a way to kind of like blend in to this place.
Thanks. So I'm looking at the audience here, and I think very pleased to see there are a lot of very senior people here, but also I can see some people who are maybe more junior in their careers. And I feel like it's quite difficult to try and do everything right. You want to be good at your day job. You want to show that you're doing well. But then we're sort of saying, yeah, but it's really great to have other things as well and to, additionality. So how can you strike the balance between, doing your best at your job, being good at it, being noticed, and then fitting in all these other things at the same time? Like, that's quite a difficult thing to get right. What do you think, Robert?
Well, there are 24 hours in a day. And if you only need to sleep like me for about 3.5, then you're fine. That's a stupid comment, but it is true for me, and it's quite painful. But I do think there's a foundational point, which is about scaffolding, which is do the stuff you're doing really, really well. We're talking all about the additional stuff, and it all sounds very, very exciting. But actually, the really, really important bit is to do your job really well, to be really good technically at what you're doing, to be a real rock for your team, to be as helpful as possible. How can you help more? And that's, in my view, how one gets noticed at the start and in the middle, and to be honest, near the end as well. The additional stuff is sort of wrapping paper. It's bows around the edges. If you don't have that centrality of really enjoying what you're doing and really saying, look, how can I help my team improve? Not I want the glory, but how can I be a real servant-hearted is what I would say, but other people would call it something different, to that team to ensure that we do really, really well. And then you'll get noticed. And then people will say, well, actually, you're really good at this. Do you have a bit of more time to do this and do this and do this? And of course, people say, don't take on too much. I completely disagree with that. I think take on as much as you enjoy and you can cope with and you can juggle, because actually that's what makes it fun. And if actually you're someone who's very, very organized and feels that they can't take on more than one or two things, that's fine too. If you have a capacity issue that you say, look, I'm doing this and this, I actually can't take on that third thing, people will admire you for that. Equally, people won't admire you if you just say no to everything. So it is a balancing act, and it's not a neat, it's sort of that walking before you can run point. I think everybody's desperate to do everything, and actually just walk for a bit. Be happy in the walking, enjoy the walking, and then you'll start running. Well, it's not what my personal trainer told me, but anyway.
And Jen, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think you can develop broader skills along the way, of course, as you're doing, the day job and getting the nuts and bolts right. So, whatever you're doing, always think about the audience that you're communicating with, because you want to make sure that whatever you're doing resonates with them, whether that's in an email that you're sending or in a call or in a meeting. That goes to, I think, the point that you were making as well, always supporting. So always try to think how to be practical. What does somebody else need in the job that they're doing, and how can you support them in doing that? So I agree with Robert.
Martin, I know we had a bit of a chat about diversity of skill sets as well before we had this panel, and you had some experiences that you wanted to share of your own family.
Oh yes, I did. Yeah. So it was interesting. Two things linked to that. So my middle son has Asperger's, and it's more of a challenge for him to communicate. Then I look back at my time at BNP, when I ran securitization globally. I had quant teams reporting to me that were very autistic, actually, superbly brilliant, but very challenged in terms of communicating that intelligence to the real world. So in both scenarios, the key thing was to understand the challenges these individuals were having. My son is not an individual, he's my son. But making sure that I personally and others could provide support for those that didn't have the natural communication skills to improve their skill sets, which can happen, and actually give them a comfortable environment where they can really be themselves as well. Because not everybody is confident, open, and can communicate articulately. Is that such a word? Yeah. But it's important for especially those in their early careers and those that are managers, to really try to, it's about the individual skill set. And perhaps as managers, not closing your eyes to people that are very talented just because they can't communicate well.
Just sticking with you, Martin, for a second, because I think that sort of naturally segues nicely into sponsorship and mentorship and having somebody who's got your back and supporting you, etc. So we hear a lot about it, right? We do a lot of events about sponsorship and mentorship. I don't have a sponsor or a mentor, and I'm not. I mean, I know what it is, etc. But can you explain to everybody?
Yeah.
Who are sponsors or mentors or sponsees, mentees, whatever, what you think, why it's so important, and how to actually go about it well?
I think it's imperative that all of you have some sort of help and support in your careers, even the senior managers in the room. For me at JP Morgan at 18, I had a sort of person that kind of sponsored me, effectively, and then that person actually helped me broaden my skill set. Then towards the end of my career at BNP, I used to go on the sort of compensation committees for the global markets business, and you'd have 3,500 people in the remit, and you'd go in detail, amongst a certain number. But what made a huge difference was if this person or individual was actually known, and often we as managers, we would sponsor and mentor people. And you can have the best skill set in the world, but unless you're given visibility and support by others, specifically senior managers, a lot of that skill set can be wasted. So I know it's been talked about a lot in the past, we won't dwell on it too much, but I think having a sponsor, having a mentor, someone you can talk to makes a huge, huge difference in your career. So when you all go back to work, I think you should talk to your managers and make sure that, somebody gives you guidance on how you can progress your career. I'd also add, always have a good relationship with HR. Make sure you have HR on your side as well, because they can help you in potential career scenarios.
And I think one of the things, sort of listening to that, is we've got to be very careful as well that just doesn't become some sort of club. So the sponsorship mentorship thing is actually everyone should have that ability. So how your business goes about ensuring that you have those connections is incredibly important. Is it someone you just know well? Is it someone you click with? All of that slightly risks that it becomes a small sector of people. And actually the truth is it should be everyone. So I don't know how you organise that. We organise it of trying to make sure that we sort of individually have one or two people that we're mentoring and looking after, so that everybody is mentored and sponsored in some way, because actually even the mentoring and sponsoring can be exclusive if you're not careful. So again, it's a bit of a minefield, but it's really, really important.
So you have an actual enforced, it's a mandatory program then, it's Slaughter in May type thing?
We effectively, within a group that we have, I don't know, some of my colleagues, I don't know whether they feel mentored or sponsored, but anyway, that's a different point. But within the group, so I'll have 60 associates, about 18 partners in my group, and each of the partners will have 3 or 4 associates that they will be responsible for talking to each week, trying to catch up with how they're doing, a little bit of kind of how you're doing personally as well. And so at least we have that fabric for everyone, because otherwise I think it does risk just who you know. Yeah. And that I think is neither fair, or you just end up talking about football, and that's really boring. I mean, sorry, great for some people.
I do talk. I am kind of a middle-aged white woman. I do talk about football. I mean,
Do you?
Yeah,
What
I
do you think of
do.
the?
I'm not
sorry.
not here. Um, I mean, we have a similar kind of thing internally, but I suppose it's worth mentioning the ICMA have a mentoring program, don't they?
But yeah, and actually, what I'd be quite interested in, just from the audience, it's quite hard to see with these lights. But on a show of hands, are like how many people in this room are either part of a sponsorship or mentorship program, either as a mentor, sponsor, or sponsee mentee? Like that's not very many. I'd say that's 10% of the room, which is actually quite shocking to me because I thought it was a lot more prolific than it is. And to Jen's point, we do have a mentorship program at ICMA, which is a matching platform. You log on, you put in your requirements, and you're matched with a mentor or a mentee or sponsor or sponsee, whatever it happens to be. And it's available to all members. So if you don't have your own programs internally, and Martin, I think Martin's message is you should have.
Yeah. To be honest,
Go
I'm
and
a
get
bit
one.
shocked. Really, I'm a bit shocked. I
I'm
know, for example, at
shocked.
BNP,
Quite
every
shocked.
graduate had somebody that would be a mentor and a sponsor. Every single graduate. So I think
Yeah.
it's disappointing, to be honest, that very few people are getting this extra help. But I think I'd go back to your managers and say, I'd like a bit of sort of help and support in terms of direction of my career, because it does make a massive difference.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's homework for everybody to take away. Lou, do you feel the same about the sponsorship, mentorship? Are you part of a program?
So I personally benefit quite a lot being mentored and sponsored alongside the journey of my career, from Citi to UBS, now at Mizuho. And I'm very passionate about it. I'm like sponsor for the other employees now as well. I'm a mentor for quite a few people. I think a lot of the firms do have the wider mentoring or like HR driven like sponsorship program to I guess to making sure this is fair and open to everyone. But I think the key thing really is, as Rob mentioned at the very beginning, you need to do your day job well. I think it's linked to this is a two-way communication. The company, the firms will set up supporting functions and those systems, the toolkit for you to use. But at the same time, it's really about how you actively manage your career as well. And to do your day job well is the foundation for everything, that's for sure. But in addition to that, what I normally do with my team is, because my background, I'm very keen to hire like a diverse candidate into my team, not only just gender, race, but educational background. Someone in my team running e-sales, he used to be a recruiter. And so I literally trying to find a different talent, different background coming in. But the challenge of that is I always ask them what actually you want to do. And a framework I think could be really helpful is you look at what I'm really good at, and then you tell me what you really enjoy doing. And then let's try to find something, combine these two. You're really good at, and plus you're really enjoying doing. And I will try my best to find a project, an area that can fit into that to support you. But at the same time, you need to tell me first. So that's why I feel like actively managing your career is crucial. So the more information you can provide to your mentor, to your like sponsors, the better for them to help you, to guide you in the way that you would like to be.
Right, great. Now, just moving on to visibility, which is a key theme. Now, we at the ICMA Women's Network conducted a survey back end of last year, and what really surprised us in the results was that across all levels of seniority, women were just very, very aware of the fact that getting visibility in the room, especially when you're not working in the room, you might be working from home, whatever, is really difficult. It's really difficult, not just among other genders, it's just really difficult even among your own gender, right? So, Louis, I'll start with you. Have you had problems with your own visibility, and how do you tackle like a lot of the specific challenges that were borne out in the survey with things like women being spoken over in meetings, somebody else hogging the credit for something, having to manage really difficult situations because of difficult personalities, etc. So do you have any tips for the audience, for everybody, all genders, about how to actually address all these things, how to manage the room, how to manage the situation?
Sure. I think, as I mentioned at the very beginning of my career, I really struggle with that in terms of visibility because that's not even a thing click in naturally. I've been told, no worries, just get your head down, got your job done, you will be noticed. But I think that's a quite big culture shock. When I really started, I realized that you really need to have the visibility. I think multiple people mentioned, right? It's like a crucial for your career. But the question is how. And I know you probably heard a lot of people saying, oh, you need to prepare for a, like elevator speech. When people come to you, then you started to talk. That to me back then was so unnatural. I said, I can't do this. This is like weird. If I randomly meet you in the lift, suddenly saying, "Hey, by the way, my name is Lu, and I have been doing this and this," it's like so weird. And so I think the thing is, you need to find a very natural way to fit in. And one of the tips I received back then from my sponsor is that you run into people in the coffee area all the time, and then normally people ask, "Hey, how are you doing?" And you can basically keep the conversation going by multiple directions. You could talk about your personal life, could talk about the weather if we like, the travel coming up, and also you could say, "Oh, actually, recently I'm doing a very exciting project." That's a more natural way to start to bring up something you would like to show to that particular audience. So that could be a more natural way to get heard. Another way is, I've been coached before as well, saying you use the we too much. You should keep an I. I said, you know what, that's not me. I can't do that as well.
Well, that's one of the things, right? I mean, you're told to sort of talk about your achievements, to be proud of them, but I think women actually find that that's just showing off, and that's not what I do. Jen, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Lots of people feel really uncomfortable talking about themselves and their achievements. But, there are different ways that you can go about it. I mean, I think you can obviously put things in more perhaps of put a practical lens on things. So to try to be helpful to people, share something you've written, or if you're putting something out on LinkedIn, make it useful to people. You're sharing information, something to consider. Then you kind of moves the onus away from it's all about me, and you're trying to help others doing so. It's often easier to also shine a spotlight on other people than it is to kind of focus on yourself. So sharing what a team has done or somebody else has done for the first time or something like that is another way to go about it.
And sometimes it is all about me. I mean, I don't mean me personally, but and sometimes you do need to get
Sometimes
the credit.
you need to. You can mix it up, I think, can't you? It doesn't have to be lots of it all the time.
I do think sometimes the we approach help in certain scenario as well. As you mentioned earlier, like alongside your career, you will notice some people tend to take credit of you, or you have driving something suddenly out of nowhere in a big meeting in front of senior management. Someone jumped in, started saying, "Oh, I have been doing this, or I have some ideas." I think because we have this, I think naturally knowing this ways like approach, for me, it's very natural saying, "Oh, thank you for your idea and the collaboration. Would love to have you in the journey." So you naturally take this back of I'm leading this thing and thank you for your input. Now you're a part of the journey together. I think sometimes this way approach could help in those situations as well.
And I think also people love to talk about themselves. I don't. I mean, sorry, when you're speaking, you don't necessarily want to talk about yourselves, but asking questions is a fantastic way of showing that you're interested. It's completely obvious, but I have a number of stock questions that I have in networking events because I hate networking. I think it's pointless. I think that whole idea of I'm here to show how brilliant I am is sort of weird, just kind of unnecessary. But if you show you're interested in someone, so my favorite question at the moment is, what's your greatest disappointment in life? And it's really surprising because every single person answers it. I don't know why they answer it. And then you get into this really quite deep conversation. You've got to make sure it doesn't go too deep. But you discover something about them. You discover, you're open to hearing about them. You're interested. You're not just in their face going, "Hey, I'm a partner at this, and aren't I brilliant?" You're actually saying, look at, people who, my view anyway, as a lawyer, people who want to get our advice want to have someone that they trust. And actually that thing of saying, who are you? What do you do? What do you get up to? What is your life? Actually, they begin to trust you. They know I can do the law vaguely. I mean, I hope so. But actually, it's about that people connection thing.
I mean, the connection thing is really important. It is just about building connections. And I think as you get more senior and you want to progress, the conversations become really important. I think you move away from, I've got to do the day job, to realising that building the connections and having the conversations is the job. That is a large part of the job.
I can't wait till the networking session tonight and I find out all your deepest, darkest secrets. Thank you, Robert, for the tip. I think we're going to have to wrap up now because we've got 5 minutes to get to the next floor to be in place for the opening remarks. But I would like to just finish with one question. So what one action or thing would you offer the audience to take away that they can implement within the next 30 days or so to see a difference in their own careers? Lou, I'm going to start.
Yes, I think the thing I mentioned earlier, map out what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. And I think that could be a very practical thing you could do in the next 30 days and try to find an area you might be interested in.
I would say generally develop your skill set and be open, be transparent, and be yourself.
I would say roll up your sleeves and get stuck in, because I think actually lots of things can appear really challenging from the outside, but once you roll up your sleeves and get really stuck in, you're solving problems, you're being more visible, you're making connections, etc.
And I'd say all of those things, but also relax. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You haven't got 30 days to achieve everything. You've got like 20, 30, 40 years. And actually enjoy what you're doing. And don't think of it always as, my goodness, I've got to hit the next thing and the next thing. And this person, if they don't leave this conversation at least knowing my name and my title and how brilliant I am, they don't really care. They just want to know you. So I'd say relax and enjoy it. That doesn't mean be lackadaisical, but it means be real and have fun.
Wonderful. I would love to ask questions of the audience, but I think we probably do have a hard stop. I'm just looking for someone to tell me that. Yeah. Yes, I've got a hard stop. But hopefully,
Man in the back said,
these guys will be here during the course of the day and in the networking breaks and at the lunch and maybe this evening at the Natural History Museum. So you might get an opportunity to catch up with them then. Thank you all for coming and enjoy the rest of your day.